Hi, Dan Bennett here from HaytersTV. I'm joined by the Evening Standard's football correspondent, Nizaar Kinsella, to chat about the sacking of Graham Potter and what's next for the club. Nizaar, just firstly, obviously you wrote in your piece for the Evening Standard today that obviously the owners, Todd Bowley and co, wanted a sort of long-term vision with Graham Potter and that they wanted to stick with him and give him time, and they wanted to kind of break away from that, I guess, hire and fire culture that we've seen at the club for so long that's obviously helped win them a lot of trophies. But I mean, what's changed then since then?
Yeah, I think they would argue maybe that they stuck with Graham Potter for quite a while, trying to wait for him to turn it around and things like that. I mean, I think that most Chelsea fans who admittedly are used to the Roman Abramovich era, the hiring and firing, seeing it get success to a certain degree anyway, and enjoying that. And the majority of Chelsea fans either weren't vibing Graham Potter from the beginning, and then by the end he was getting booed and getting chanted at, "You're sacked in the morning" by his own fans. So I think that the owners would argue that, but yeah, I do think they also at the same time, you hire Graham Potter. He's a project manager. He's a club building manager. He's proven it. Certainly in two of his last three jobs at Ostersund and Brighton, which is why Chelsea hired him. And they've not given him that time that we all know he needs to sort of do a good job. So yeah, I think it's a case of it was just too bad in the sort of short term that they couldn't overlook it. I mean, Chelsea. It's hard to get your head around the fact that Chelsea are 11th in the Premier League in the bottom half. And also, we're not talking about the start of the season, a bit of a freak run. We're talking about 10 games to go in the Premier League. So, yeah, I think they just thought this is too bad. Can he recover? Probably not. And they didn't see any green shoots of recovery. So they've opted to sack him. And yeah, I mean, I think that most fans are relieved, to be honest. And I can kind of understand their reasoning why, but then you just ask the question, was Graham Potter the right man for the job in the first place? And you're probably saying, no, he wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's pretty crazy you say that. I mean, you'd have got very good odds on Chelsea finishing in the bottom half of the table at the start of the season. But I mean, like you said, 10 games to go, it actually looks like that is a very real possibility, which is amazing to think, really, especially given the money spent. But like you say, was it just the lack of improvement, do you think, on the pitch for Graham Potter? Because obviously, there was talk of those Leeds and Dortmund games, how big they were for his Chelsea career, and obviously he won those. But since then, it's obviously gone back to kind of what it was before, wasn't it? They couldn't seem to sustain that improvement under him.
Yeah, I think that that period you're mentioning, just before that, he went one game. He won one game in 15 matches, I think, in all competitions. And most managers at any club, never mind Chelsea, would be under pressure at that point. Yeah, I think that then he was really on the brink at that point. I think if he didn't beat Leeds, that could have been the end of him. He beat Leeds, he beat Dortmund, and then yeah, he sort of strung together those three wins, Leicester, and then drew with Everton. So yeah, stringing those wins together really sort of saved his job in the short term, and it sort of owes to what the situation was, because Graham Potter, he had enough credit in the bank with the players that they would fight for him. They were really, you could see on the pitch, like, Chelsea fans might not believe me, but being there week in, week out, they were fighting. They were getting yellow cards. They were getting stuck in. They were shouting at the ref. They were doing all that kind of stuff. And that's because they wanted to win. They wanted to sort of turn it around. And I spoke to a few of the players, and they did want to turn it around for Graham Potter. But the underlying quality wasn't there. The coaching wasn't bringing together any discernible pattern of play or anything like that. So the actual quality and work on the training field just wasn't being, it wasn't heralding results. So I think eventually Chelsea had drawn with Everton and then lost to Aston Villa, and it was just like, look, we can't have another run like that. If we have another run like that, like, how low down the table will we be? We've barely got any of the season left to salvage, so let's at least try something, and let's look for somebody else who might be better suited to the job. I think these owners have been around it and seen what was going on up close and personal. I think they wanted Potter to succeed. I think it's a bit embarrassing for them now that he's been sacked, because they've been saying that they wanted a long-term project, and now they're sort of back to square one. But maybe it was, swallow your pride and do the right thing. And I think that that's the way most Chelsea fans feel right now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the players there and that they were still fighting for him. I mean, you touched on in your piece that maybe there was a slight lack of respect, maybe among some, that he'd not been an elite level manager, and some Harry Potter jokes maybe maybe flying around as well. I mean, was that a problem for him, do you think? Did he struggle to win over some of the players, or do you think that the players were very much wanted him to stay and was still fighting for him.
Well, yeah, I think that the players broadly liked him, but I think when your manager's struggling and you get bad results, then certain players will have a problem with that. And then you've got the whole thing of a 32-man squad. You can't keep everyone happy. So those kind of jokes, I mean, they're very easy to grasp towards. We've seen it all ourselves on Twitter and Instagram. And I think that that's where the players sort of get some of these ideas from and things like that. So, yeah, I think that he was quite widely respected. I mean, even the case of Aubameyang, the player left out of the Champions League squad, pretty harsh, really, I'd say. A player you'd told in September that he was going to be a big player for the project for the next 2 years, and then you just sort of bomb him out because you've signed too many players. But even he, I think, I've been told behind the scenes he was very professional and quite got on with Potter, but he was obviously very unhappy about his situation. But there was that kind of, that's why Potter almost lasted for so long as he did, because he kind of had enough credit in the bank. But then there was, these jokes. You do get a bit of that, and I think that if there is one failing, it was probably a lack of authority. Like I said in the piece, it's that lack of authority to get your ideas across quickly, to sort of have the urgency to get your team to win. He was a nice guy, but maybe lacks the aggressive streak, the charisma, and maybe authority that Thomas Tuchel had before.
Yeah, I mean, just on that as well, obviously, like, do you think maybe he didn't help himself with some of the things he spoke about? There was a lot of talk, wasn't there? A lot of pain and suffering, and obviously there was a lot of change at the club, given what happened with the previous owner, and then obviously all the new players coming in, and I think he was quite keen to stress that. But did that work against him in the end, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that helped, Dan. I think it's the problem there is that, a really big thing that influences the team is like the atmosphere in the stadiums. And I've been going around with Chelsea all season, and the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge has been terrible. I mean, even Potter's first game, it wasn't very inspired. It was very flat, and it only got flatter during the tenure. And there was obviously some mutinous moments, boos, some chants against Potter, aggressive comments from the stands. So that kind of negativity feeds into the players, especially at big clubs. We've seen it before with Manchester United and Arsenal, and now Chelsea have got that. They've got that sort of curse where you're trying to turn it around, and the atmosphere is really bad at Stamford Bridge right now, and around Graham Potter. So, yeah, I think that was the aspect of it, was that Potter was sort of saying to us that he had the fans behind him, but I just couldn't see it.
And a lot of the fans now will rightfully, probably and fairly, be questioning the owners and wondering what's going on. Obviously, sacking Thomas Tuchel, Champions League winning manager, and getting Graham Potter in, then getting rid of him. Spent, was it almost 600 million around that on new signings as well. Do you think the pressure's on them as well, especially with this next appointment, to make sure they get it right and get on the right track? Because, obviously they're new owners in the Premier League, aren't they? So a lot of people will probably be wondering what's going on.
Yeah, most of the anger from actual Chelsea fans has been centered around Graham Potter. I think they're used to sort of change the managers, so I think maybe the fans have a bit of leeway with the owners. But I think that the media, a lot of ex-players and stuff like that, a lot of Potter's got a lot of goodwill around football as well. So I think there's a lot of anger about Potter not being given time, or even just the stability, because let's not forget that these new owners have been signing players, but there's not really a place for some of them. There's 32 players in the squad. It's not ideal. No coach arguably could manage that situation. And then we've got a situation as well where every head of department has sort of pretty much on the men's football side has been sacked and replaced with another. So there's that turbulence behind the scenes that fans don't see, but certainly affects the team. And how many points does that cost Chelsea? Possibly a few. So I think that they probably do have a case to answer. I mean, this could end up being one of the worst seasons in Chelsea's Premier League history. I think if they finish 11th, the last time they did so was in 1996.
Wow.
Chelsea have a really low win percentage. I think it's the third worst in the Premier League era this season. I think they could break the record number of losses in a Premier League season, which was 12. They're on 10 right now with 10 games to go. So, yeah, I mean, it's not all on the manager. Of course, Potter takes some criticism, but I don't think it's been a great platform this season. I think it could have been handled better. I think Potter could have been protected a bit more. Maybe he would have still fallen up short, but, surely he would have lasted longer if he was at a more stable club.
I think all the Chelsea fans have clicked off the video now. Now you've read out all those stats from. It doesn't make for good hearing at all. But just finally, then is our obviously Bruno Saltor is the man who's been placed in interim charge. Remains to be seen, obviously, how long he's there for. You know, Coach Graham Potter obviously brought to the club and knows very well, and is very close to Potter. I mean, is he? What did you make of the decision to put him in charge, and what's next for Chelsea? Obviously, Julian Nagelsmann's being talked about, Pochettino as well as name being mentioned. I mean, where do you think they go from here?
Yeah, well, let's start with Bruno Saltor. I think, we were at the press conference today, and we were just discussing it before we went on. And he was a bit, he seemed like a really nice guy. He seemed, I had a lot of, credit for him for stepping up and doing this and sort of helping his team. But I had a bit of concern that he looked a bit scared. He looked a bit, he lacked confidence maybe in the situation. And why would he have confidence? He's never been in this situation before. He's going to pick his first lineup as a manager against Liverpool, against Jurgen Klopp, one of the best managers in the world. Okay, they're struggling, but still, it's kind of a crazy situation to imagine, and for one of the biggest clubs in the world in Chelsea. So it is a bit of a crazy situation. Usually clubs have maybe more of an experienced interim lined up as well, so that's not really what's going on in Chelsea's case. And I think that would concern me. Is he going to play a different way as well? Like, are you going to get a response, a new manager bounce from a manager like that? Maybe not, because he's kind of Potter's guy. So I wonder, if I was to guess, I'd probably say very similar lineup will play against Villa. That played against Villa will play against Liverpool. So and then I think Chelsea looking for the next manager. We were talking earlier about, are the owners under pressure? Of course, like this appointment, they failed with their first ever appointment of a manager. So the second one needs to be good, right? It needs to be good for a little while anyway. So they really need to consider it, and they really need to get it right. This time, they have two sporting directors helping him, Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart. They were only appointed around December time, I believe, or maybe January for Stewart. So that's going to be, they're going to help them. But they need to get it right. And I think what they're looking for is a long-term option. I think they're looking for, they're going to look quite far and wide. They don't want to just jump in on the first guy. I mean, they were pretty sure about Potter when they hired him, but I think this time they want to really assess the options, really go through it, really go into exceptional detail on the choice. I think that's the way what we're being told about the process. So hopefully they do that. Hopefully they do it in the right way. It does mean that it might be a bit slower than fans want. I think fans will want somebody in. We'll accept Bruno for Liverpool, but we want a new manager in for Wolves and Real Madrid. That would be great, but we've got to be open to the prospect that Bruno might be around for a week or two. And it's mad to even think that Bruno Saltor could be managing at the Bernabeu with a little experience, but it could happen. So I think that's where we're at. It's Chelsea. It's chaos, and I think that's why some people love Chelsea.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Nizaar. Thank you for your time, and let us know in the comments below what you make of this whole situation, what we've spoken about, and also who you want to be the next manager as well among the names that are in the frame. So thanks very much for watching.